Clay Christensen disruption model where large companies with their big processes are falling by the wayside, and also today. And these full-time employment contracts so it's a problem getting bigger, I think.
I just wanted to mention the digital native fallacy. So there's the idea that digital natives are going to be fully digital, kept competent and skilled in order to be able to do the things that the future workforce is going to require of them. Most of the research suggests that digital natives over-assess their own personal competence in the ability to use digital tools, and actually they're not very good. So if you search for digital native fallacy, you'll see that the mismatch between how good people think they are and how good they are at using digital tools is quite substantial. So that comes back to the idea that there's a necessity to invest in people's skills in using digital tools. The problem that gives, of course, is digital tools aren't standing still. So the things that you learn now are going to be out of date in 2 to 3 years' time. And so we think the digital natives are really skilled because they can pick up these things quite easily, but without a sort of a bedrock of learning how to learn and a whole process methodology about what is it I'm trying to do and how can a digital tool help me to do it better, without that sort of design thinking, we're just going to get better at using tools badly more quickly.
On Monday morning, some months ago, I wrote into RNZ saying, how about you quote the price of Bitcoin when you're quoting the oil price and the gold price? And they pretty much ignored it. But last Monday, for the first time, Giles Beckford did reluctantly and with some irritation talk about cryptocurrency and blockchain, and he did announce the price of Bitcoin. And also Catherine Ryan at 9 to noon following talked again with some irritation and ridicule about blockchain, and there was a professor from Auckland, I think it was. Did anyone hear that? Anyway, she was saying we've got to get on board this blockchain technology because New Zealand is behind, and it's a major technology. Just it's not as hot as AI, but it's still pretty hot. So what I'm getting around to say is there seems to be a real need for education. I wrote in to RNZ on Monday, as soon as I'd heard both Giles Beckford struggling away there and Catherine Ryan struggling away, I wrote in an email saying, please give them a week off each to attend a training course on cryptocurrencies and blockchain, because it's really unfair to expect them to deliver to the public, who are vastly more ignorant than they are, in a simple way what blockchain technologies are and what cryptocurrencies, what the functionality of the blockchain is. It's not just money. It's the whole way of transforming and automating a lot of our businesses to huge benefit. So I said, please consider giving them a week off each to go to a training course, maybe with the manager of the Blockchain New Zealand and so on. So education is a crucial thing. I'll just finish here. The library, for example, the library staff, I would swap the entire library for a digital equivalent. It probably would still have a presence downtown as a library, but it would be radically different. And I'd say 95% of the staff in the library would either have to train up in new technologies or they'd be out of work and paid off and gone. Because I'm saying the education is a big goal. And here's a job for some trainers. learn up the cryptocurrencies, learn up the blockchain technologies, and teach it so that people are equipped.
I just attended 3.5 hours on Microsoft 365, and I realised that for my staff and everyone, people aren't trained that well. We're going to spend another week going through what 365 can deliver. And so as a business productivity tool, I'd encourage all businesses and all people to get yourself up to speed with what the power of that tool and the functionality inside it. So just a thought. Microsoft 365. Oh, it's the entire suite from planners to sharing, collaboration of documents to doing a whole range of things. It's very powerful.
I'll say something. It's not relevant to that at all, but I've been sitting on something that you mentioned a while ago, which was that there's a lot of things that are available now to us to be able to use as individuals even. We don't need to be big corporations to come up with new things and release them to market. Our market is international. We've got the same ability to tackle new markets as anybody else in the world, which is a really cool thing. I work for a large organisation, and we're going through this transformation at the moment where we're trying to be a small startup business effectively. The term's called Agile, and it uses a bunch of things like design thinking. And it's kind of like taking this old stodgy thing and completely throwing away the rule book and starting again. And it's proving to be pretty difficult, but it's possible. I guess for me, digital is not the focus. Digital is just the enabler that helps us to go through a very different way of working inside our organisation. I heard from Amazon a week or two ago, and they shared with us a story about how they've got 585,000 staff in their business, and every single one of them are considered to be an innovator. And they actually run this interesting process where if you've got an idea, then you would write effectively a press release about that idea, even if it's crazy. If you think it's crazy, that's what it doesn't matter. Get the idea out and write a press release, probably about 4 paragraphs or so, and release it and see if anybody likes it. And if somebody else likes it, then the next step you would do is go ahead and write up a frequently asked questions, and that way there's some tangible, sort of measurable, real component to your idea. And thirdly, if you've still got interest from people, then you would go ahead and write a user manual for it. And if you can get through all of that, and people don't think you're crazy, or by that stage people probably jumped on board and helped contribute to that idea, you've just got the start of a brand new business idea that they're prepared to go and throw what they call a 2-pizza-sized team at, which is generally a team of people that could eat a couple of pizzas together and feel sustained, so 8 people perhaps, or 6 if you're a bigger person. And it's great. So imagine having 585,000 people in your organisation that all kind of feel like early adopters, innovators, startup sort of DNA. It's pretty amazing. So.
What you're saying sounds to me very much like based on the idea that came up via the Americans to the Japanese as Kaizen, that idea of bringing your idea for it, the way something can be improved in your company or what your local working area, and just bring it up through the hierarchy in the company to get it adopted. I'd just like to change it just slightly for a moment, because I think that the thing that bothers me in terms of all this wonderful effort and innovation and things that we've got comes up against first movers, and it comes up against the tax regimes around the world whereby certain people with a lot of money, it's courtesy of whether that was originally from the banks or private equity arrangement of some sort or whatever, or buyouts, have managed to accumulate so much money that they can almost really, really drive what's going on in an area. And I think we are right up against that as a small country with small companies. I look at Amazon, I look at some the areas which I'm more familiar with, there's information, and it'd be impossible for some people to ever compete, let alone outshine and replace what's existing there. And I'm concerned about what's happening with Amazon. I think a big issue in our productivity is going to be reliant on extremely smart MFAT negotiators who in turn need to be really clued up either business-wise or via MB support people in those negotiation processes to actually work harder than OECD already has at present on the tax international law. Because as long as we've got people who are prepared to sink their tax requirements to ridiculous levels, we're going to have ongoing inequality, people who are out of work, people who are unhappy, and the kind of issues we're seeing broadly in quite a number of countries in the world at the moment.
G'day. So just listening to what's being talked about, when I first took the microphone, it was a little while ago. We were talking about incremental change. I take on board what Mike said about the driver's license thing, and that obviously has lots of potential to stepping forward. But I want to balance that, because I think that's a great idea. The thing I wanted to balance against is, in the past, like I worked in telecom in Palmerston North when there were 3,000 people working for telecom here, and within a matter of 5 years it went down to 30 people working in telecom in Palmerston North. Now, that I can see as a great way of changing a culture and bringing in new initiatives, but I also saw that there is an enormous amount of intellectual property that was just thrown away. And when it comes to productivity, I think productivity is related to the information that we have within an organisation, and if you're throwing it away, and that was basically done for financial reasons, but I think it was not done in terms of a good efficiency. As well as that, when you bring that, I'll just give you an analogy. I used to own an old VCR that played tapes, and the original intellectual understanding of how they got that tape deck up to the pinnacle of what it was capable of doing was immense. And that was replaced with a DVD machine, which if they'd bought even a tenth of what was in that VCR's capabilities and put it into the DVD machine, it was an amazing machine. But when they threw out all the old technology and bought in the new technology, they didn't bring the learning that had been inherent in the old technology into the new technology, and all of a sudden it became a dumb player that they could reproduce and sell for $250 each instead of the VCR, which was going for $3,000 and had an enormous amount of capability compared to that. And so what I just want to do is encourage people to remember the intellectual property we have before we just start throwing it out and replacing it with something new.
This is totally unrelated, sorry. I wanted to bring it back to a grassroots question, and don't know how many community organisations we've got around here or people who represent community organisations in the room. I work at Te Aro Hanoa Community Services in Highbury. We have been established for 30 years, and the organisation's grown for 30 years to the point where we now have 48 PCs in our organisation, but the affordability of keeping them going and how it's affecting productivity is quite immense, and we're really struggling at the moment. And so I came here to try and find some inspiration about how we resolve those community organisation problems and affordability, and what's the best internet package to use. Do we have a HR online package to be able to be more productive? We've got over 50 staff there now, and it's a struggle. We've got Windows 7 on all of our computers, so we can't actually put anything on there that will handle anything. So, yeah, ideas over lunch or come and see me or whatever. Thank you.
I think that's a really important point, because we can talk about productivity, but if organizations like yours don't have the tools they need in order to service the communities that you can enable, then that becomes a real constraint. And there was another woman I spoke to in the previous session from Angel Wings, so I could introduce you to her. Digital Wings, pardon me, yeah. So maybe that's an option. Cool, okay. Are there other solutions or other ideas around what productivity means?
Now, I'm just a little bit of that. I'm just learning about the capabilities of my new phone. Now, I've got the latest and best from Samsung, and the thing that I really like about it is I can plug this into a little adapter, plug it into a monitor, put a keyboard and mouse into it, and use it as a full PC. Now that, I know this is an expensive model, but that's a facility that will work down through the chain of other machines, and I think that could replace a lot of the problems that you're having with your keeping up to date with software and having word processors and spreadsheets. All that's inherent and in there already, and you know, that's a PC.
Mine's more of a question just around, I guess, with the digital transformation and people working remotely and productivity and how that sort of works, and whether people have thoughts on whether that makes for a more productive workplace, or, you know, what people's thoughts are.
That's a good question. Yeah. An answer coming?
I work like that. So I work across everywhere south of Auckland and north of Wellington for Spark. Most of the work I do is not based here in Palmerston North. Most of the conversations I have with customers are over video conferencing. Don't like the sound of my own voice. And it's quite enabling. Digital makes it all possible, but there's a balance, and you still have to have that human time. There's also, I think, you need to, if you're part of a distributed virtual team, which more and more organisations are finding they're needing to draw on experts from different areas, you have to manufacture opportunities to rub shoulders with those people to keep the human contact going. But the cost to serve, I think, has dropped considerably by operating over a distributed model where we have experts centred in different areas. And on another note, a good friend of mine who's worked for one of New Zealand's larger banks has decided to move his family up to Palmerston North, even though he still works in Wellington, and he only goes to Wellington 2 days a week. Sometimes he goes to Auckland, and he would have been going to Auckland anyway on business, regardless of where he lived. So he's chosen to move to Palmerston North for lifestyle for his family and for himself, but the work that he does hasn't been impacted at all in terms of how he operates. So, yeah.
So my response to that question is it's a lot harder as a manager. A lot harder. It requires a conscious effort by managers of people who are choosing to work in a distributed fashion to unlearn the way that they've learned to be managers and manage in a different way. And it's not an easy thing to do, having done it in a couple of organisations. So that's the first question. I think it is liberating and productivity generating for the individual, but for the manager and for the organisation, that needs to change. The second is the separation. If you are working from your own home office and on the road, separation between personal time and work time. And there's a sort of assumption that because you're working from home, then you can be contacted at any time in order to do your job because you're at home, and so what's the difference? Whereas the separation between work and home is a lot easier when there's a physical place to go to. So both of those are pretty fundamental cultural changes about the way where work takes place.
Cool. Bruce, you had a comment.
Yeah, I was just going to put a little plug in for virtual reality worlds. I often go into High Fidelity and sometimes into Second Life, and there's another one called Old Space VR. But they're not quite here yet, and that you've got to have a very good graphics card and a grunty PC. But within a year, they will be. Even now, you can go in. I'll be going into High Fidelity on Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Anyone who's got a grunty PC can do the same. You get $15 US for doing it, because they're doing a load test on High Fidelity that day. Anyway, what I'm saying is, keep in mind VR, because you can meet virtually, and there's a difference between a phone call to someone in England and a Skype call to someone in England, or when you're in VR. Now that is different. You go close to them like this, they feel it. It's very much a presence. It's not quite the same as a handshake, but would you pay $5,000 to go to England to shake somebody's hand? It's a question we have to ask ourselves. Sometimes you say, yes, it's my little nephew Timmy and I want to hug him, and I'll pay $6,000 to do that and be with my daughter or whatever it is. But VR is coming to the party. Within a year or two, you'll be thinking of getting VR equipment, going virtually to places. No time. You'll save yourself £7,000 of CO2 going to the atmosphere, not 3 days of travel, all that.
Cool. For you. I'm just conscious we've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm looking forward to hearing about some more solutions and tools and enablers that we might need as a community, as business, as people, to unlock that productivity.
Yeah, this is just a quick question to the previous statement though. VR, is that via avatar or is that via an identity?
I built myself an avatar recently. It looks very like me. So if we were in High Fidelity, you could look like you, I can look like me. I can look like anything, but I chose to look like me because I just want to be consistent and you recognise me. But does that answer the question? Yeah.
So go back to the lady's question. The DIA on behalf of New Zealand government have just signed the next Microsoft contract. I don't know if you're covered by it, but it is driving everything into the cloud. You have to be able to demonstrate why you're not going to use Microsoft's product in the cloud. Yeah. That means the phone will work because all the processing is split between the phone and the cloud. So if you do, you have to get off Windows 7. Okay. But you don't have to go to another PC. Yeah. You can pay $3,000 for his phone or maybe $5,000 for a PC. But you'll have to change the way your people work, the way you store data, and whether they come to the office. Why make them come to the office? They can dock their phone at home. But that takes you back to the social question. Do you pay them to come to work or do you pay them to do work? So you contract them to do deliverables or they have breaks in their employment. So that is the way the world's going. New Zealand's ahead in some respects because you've got a huge contractor population. Yeah. But there's still a lot of people who do manual jobs that might not have jobs tomorrow.
Thank you.
Again, I'm talking about old technology here in a sort of a way, except it's really souped up lately, considerably in latter times. A lot of people love to go off to conferences, and I understand that. Here's a little one here where I'm getting to know people I wouldn't know otherwise. But I honestly think there's a lot more people in organisations can participate via electronic means of talking to one another via Zoom or whatever it might be, than actually having to go to Auckland or whatever to do whatever their thing is. And I think that would help both the environment, climate change and everything else. So that's another business productivity in IT which has really been facilitated lately and could be used a lot more. I'm saying something really boring and anodyne and whatever. Yeah.
We're talking about increasing productivity. If there's one factor I think would make a huge difference, it is educating the people who need to know about it, like Catherine Ryan on RNZ, like the library staff. I mean, she's good. She's really good, but she doesn't know about it. She hasn't been allowed to because the managers don't know about it either. They don't know the importance of it. They don't know where to go to get this instruction. So I think a major thing we aim at is get teachers, new jobs for teachers. They learn it up and they teach the public and they teach the decision makers. But at the library right now, I'd say most of the staff aren't anywhere near equipped to deal with the digital replacement of the library as it comes. And all businesses, you take for granted they know. They don't. They need to be given a chance to learn.
So how could we do that?
So Wellington Girls College 10, 15 years ago, we're struggling with how do we get teachers to understand technology, and the principal, Marg McLeod, came up with the idea of digital angels, and these were 5th and 6th and 7th formers that would sit down with the teacher for an hour after school once or twice a week and talk them through what digital was about. I also know of at least one chief executive of a government department that set aside an hour a week of her time to get somebody who was doing information systems at university to come and just talk to her about how the world was changing. Because I think reaching across generations and using some of the sort of the energy and the excitement that people have in their teens and 20s, that a bit later it gets sort of ground out of you by life, but in the teens and 20s, then with a whole collection of areas, that's how we can get it injected into the top, and then it'll filter down into the organisation.
A lot of our polytechnics are in trouble right now, and I remember in the relatively early days on my return to New Zealand, there were courses run after working hours where people could go and learn about IT and upgrade themselves. And although there have been free courses at places like UCOL, we need more of that stuff. I think the government would do well to invest money in polytechnic after hours stuff, and things, not just the IT angle, but things where people can grow their strategic information, strategic planning, even science. I mean, I had a rotten science education. I would dearly like to spend part of my retirement compensating for that, and then bringing that together with my information skills and my business skills to really help people do things that you're trying to do and help them with in the economic agency area. I'm sure it would make a big difference. You know, tap into those resources and make those resources work harder.
Just on that subject, within our area, it's a design school, we've just offering some courses like photography and things like that, getting enormous influx. So we've got enormous potential to do that. I think at the end of the day, is there money in it for UCOL, but there's certainly, we could train in anything, you know, and support it by online as well. So you need to have that personal touch, people like that, but also, so I think there's a lot of room to move in that area, especially for polytechnics, because really that's what polytechnics should do.
Thank you. Simon.
I just, changing gears again, sorry, but I'm just looping back to something that you talked about earlier. It's amazing how cheap it is to get access to applications that can make a real difference in your business around productivity, and it generally is all about the mobile phone at the moment until we get more voice driven. And I just wanted to share a couple of examples with everybody. So my son decided earlier this year that he wanted to start a business online. He had no idea about technology and really no interest in it. He was thinking about how to solve a problem. For him, it was about streamlining the process for capturing legal information and making the patent process for ideas more accessible to people. So it's quite a grand plan, and we went through and prototyped to build how this thing works, and we used a cloud-delivered website. We used an automated-based document generator using natural language processing, and spat it out using APIs and interacted with the would-be customer through digital forms on a mobile app. His whole business had a monthly operating cost of $100 production. So there's really cool things out there that you can use if you can imagine them. And the other example I'll share with you is a friend of mine is he's a business development manager that travels around the country, and they use a cloud-delivered CRM system, which doesn't cost them much. And when somebody in the office gets a call and that's a lead, it gets generated and pops straight into their Salesforce or whatever equivalent to it application. when somebody calls him on his phone, which is Android, and he's running Google, Google can automatically, through another app, integrate natively into the CRM system, so it knows exactly who's calling. So he can get a call from a random person and know exactly who he's talking to, and he's never spoken with them before previously, and that's sub $100 a month as well, all done through mobile delivered applications. So,
There's lots out there.
yeah.
More than we know. Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts, Bruce?
Elect and appoint people who are capable in digital. Have a policy that says, can it be done digitally? And if you don't know, you talk to the person you've elected or appointed, and they'll guide you.
CTO sounds like a good idea.
Kia ora everyone. Just a quick reminder about the big ideas. Let's not forget about those. So I see there are a lot of things written on the board. If there's any way for you to condense those down into a really nice summary or a particular idea, Duncan and Gina are the Big Ideas team. They would love to talk to you and kind of wrangle that into a big idea to put to the panel at the end. Thank you. That's the end of this public service announcement.
So that's something I was thinking about doing kind of now, because we've had a lot of good discussion. So what do you think about maybe consolidating some stuff and maybe thinking about what could be 3 big outcomes that might be ideas that are practical yet kind of inspirational to take forward? I think there's a lot about skills and training, because we've talked so much about that. So how do we equip people with the skills and training and thinking they need to take better advantage of digital tools? Would we agree about that? Yeah. So we've got training and we go over to awareness. We talked about awareness quite a bit too. So it's awareness not just amongst the people that know, but the people that can influence. Is there a third area? Training, awareness. Pardon me? Yep. Yep. Tell us more.
It's about being New Zealand centric.
Yep.
The data center might not employ any people,
Mm-hmm.
but it brings huge revenue because everybody pays by the storage byte, whatever.
Right.
So if you don't have anything in the country,
Yeah.
you're just bleeding money.
Yeah. Okay. Would we agree that would be 3 kind of things to take forward? Our 3 are skills, training, awareness of the influencers, and then if there's a platform around data storage. Yeah, well, the equipping community was more about giving community groups the IT hardware and software they need to be more productive. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I've really appreciated this. And it was driven by what you thought, but I think we came up with some kind of good ideas for further thought and consideration, and certainly something for the panel to consider at the end of the day, what we need for tools and enablers as communities, as employers, as businesses, as institutions, and how that could come together through training, skills, awareness, and a platform around storage. Okay. We'll draw it to a close. Thank you.